Hello, this is Dave and Kathy. We're here in Herkimer, New York, down by the Erie Canal. And we're about to take an adventure on an Erie Canal cruise. Now, Kathy and I have always had a special place in our heart for the Erie Canal. At one point, we lived in Spencerport on a house that backed up to the Erie Canal. A few years later, when we were cruising on our sailboats, we took our little sailboat, we left the mast behind because of low bridges. We put in Macedon, New York, and traveled the canal all the way to the Niagara River. Then we went all the way back to Macedon, kept on going. We went down into the Cayuga-Seneca Canal and stopped at Seneca Falls and toured the history in that area. So today, we're excited because we've never done this section of the canal. To come into Herkimer. Let me find Herkimer for you.
Keep going. Keep going, Erie Canal.
All right, over in Herkimer, and the canal's going to take us to lot 18. We're going to go through the lock, and we're going to come back. We're really looking forward to this ride and glad you're going to ride along with us.
The eastern part of the Erie Canal actually runs the route of the Mohawk River as opposed to being dug out for the most part. There are still places where there are locks, and not too far away from here is a land cut where they needed a lock. In the distance you see the guard gate for the Erie Canal, which is where we'll head once we get on board. And the guard gate enters this cut here, which takes us to lock 18 down by Jacksonburg. A stump puller. Now, why would this be important for the Erie Canal? They had to pull a lot of stumps to clear the woods around Rome and the central part of the canal, and it was taking way too long to do it. So they developed this stump puller, which used a pair of oxen, and this is at a half size, 8-foot tall stump puller. It was actually 16-foot diameter wheels on it, where they would wrap the rope around the center pulley and use it to pull the stumps out, apparently very efficiently once they had the mechanism to do it.
Version of the Erie was a huge infrastructure project. More rock was blasted, more dirt was dug, and more concrete was poured for the canal you're sitting in right now than for the Panama Canal. The lifts on some of these locks, the distance they lift boats up, are greater than the Panama Canal locks. This was a big job. It's difficult to overstate how important the Erie Canal has been to New York State.
We're on the Mohawk River section of the Erie Canal, but the Mohawk is about to leave us. If you look under the bridge on our port side at about 11 o'clock, those green structures are not more bridges, but Mohawk-style movable dams. And there goes the Mohawk over those dams, dropping down about 7 feet and continuing on. We're about to leave the river and enter into an artificial, man-made section of the canal known as a land cut, L-A-N-D-C-U-T. As we come under the bridge, we'll be going under those large green guillotine-looking type structures. These are guard gates. There are 24 sets of these gates on the canal, usually where a river and a land cut separate. The guard gates are used as flood control mechanisms. When flooding occurs, the gates are lowered and fit into a concrete sill under the water. They block high water from entering the land cut and possibly damaging the lock, which is 5 miles ahead of us. The water is diverted back into the Mohawk River on the other side of Plantation Island on our port side. Today, this island is a wildlife management area. Guard gates also have another use. The canal is open every year from the beginning of May through November 15th. When the canal closes for the season, the guard gates are lowered and the water is diverted back to the river. This is the historic Fort Herkimer Church. There is an ongoing controversy over whether it's actually the second oldest or the sixth oldest in the state. There is no controversy over which one is the oldest in the state. That honor goes to the Sleepy Hollow Dutch Reformed Church in Tarrytown, New York, built before 1699.
Well, we said that lock 18 is one of the most historically correct locks. What do we mean by that? Well, everything you see in front of you, with the exception of the metal light poles, the ropes that you'll see dangling down inside the chamber, and the outer 12 inches of concrete on the face of the walls, everything else is original to 1913. All the equipment has been in service for over 100 years.
As we've been traveling towards Lock 18, off the starboard side, off the port side of the canal has been an island. The other side of the island is the Mohawk River and the rest Canada Creek. If you saw our tubing video a few days ago, you see we were tubing in a different section of West Canada Creek. And you can kind of see that water right there overflowing into the river.
All right, the first sound you'll hear behind us is the sound of Corey closing the upper gates. Those gates are 26 feet high. They weigh 26 tons. And they're opened and closed with 5 horsepower electric motors. Those are the original motors. Been here for over 100 years. Okay, the next sound you'll hear is the sound of Corey closing the upper gates. Or I'm sorry, closing the upper valves. We already closed the gates. As we leave the lock, if you look over on our left, you'll see a series of numbers embedded in the wall. That's the old manual water gauge. And that indicates our height above sea level, 64, 65, 66. You have to put a 3 in front of that. We're 364 feet above sea level.
As you can see, we've left the land cut through the lock and rejoined the Hudson River, and you can actually see the island that we traveled along the entire route.
Okay, so he's going to close the gates, he's going to close the lower valve, and then he'll walk up to the upper control house and begin raising the upper valves. The sound that you hear behind you is the sound of the points rubbing up against the wall. So we're on our way up. So the locks operate 24/7 for the commercial vessels. How many boats go through a lock at any given time? As many fit.